Welcome to my first YouTube video. Today I'm going to be sharing with you my sketchbook process. These are the videos that get the most engagement on my TikTok, so I figured I'd make some longer form content. I lit some candles and some incense. I used this sketchbook. It's the Moleskine watercolor sketchbook. People get mad at me for even calling it a sketchbook because I like to have rendered pieces in here, fully finished pieces, almost like just an art book to look through. I obviously keep another book for the messier, uglier sketches, but for this I like to make a lot of my videos in here, so I like to think more about what I'm making. I like to find my reference photos from Pinterest. I look for unique looking portraits or just other artwork that inspires me. I use these powdered watercolors for the background of my gouache paintings. I just like how the color peeks through. And then I use this Holbein gouache in an airtight container. Then I sketch out the portrait with a black wing pencil, and with a kneaded eraser, I'll just take away some of the harsh lines. And today I'm going to be using the Holbein masking fluid pen to kind of create those flower shadows that I showed in the reference photo. This masking fluid dries down clear, and then you rub it away when it's dry to show the color underneath it. When I put this blue paint down, you can kind of see how the orange peeks through. And I just like the way that this looks compared to white paper. I like that it is just a little bit more interesting. And in the portrait itself, little peaks of orange, I think, looks really good. I don't know. It's just a preference thing. When I'm painting with gouache, I like to start off doing the darkest shadows first, the same way that you would with oil paint. I find that gouache is very similar in terms of the process as oil paint because gouache gets reactivated with water the same way that oil paint doesn't dry, so it gets reactivated when you put more paint on top. I feel like you have to treat it the same way. I am definitely still learning, so if anybody wants to give me some tips of how to use gouache the correct way, I would love to hear it. The first thing I do is I put down all of the harshest shadows, and then I also put in the brightest highlights. And a lot of times I do use straight white for this because whatever colors I use on top, the white will kind of mix in and make the highlights as light as I want them to be. One piece of advice that I do have while painting portraits is to stick very close to your reference photo. I find that sometimes after I draw a portrait, I trust myself to just know where the shadows are going to be. I find that it looks a little bit more cartoonish when I rely on my own knowledge of where shadows should be. Every reference has a different position of the face and different lighting, and it's very important to just stick very close to where the shadows hit on each person's face. Obviously, we all have different facial features, and it looks different on everybody. Another piece of advice that I have been using myself and learning how to use is mixing skin tones. I used to make my skin tones a little bit too saturated, whether they were too orange, too pink, too yellow, or too brown. If you kind of make most of your skin tones cool toned, almost making a gray scale and adding a little bit of the original color that you want to use, whether it be peach or brown, I find that this makes it look a lot more natural in the painting. I do like my paintings to look painterly. I don't like them to look extremely realistic. I like the way that it looks when it has an artistic flair to it. This painting specifically, I didn't love the way it turned out, but I am still practicing. That's the point of a sketchbook, so that when you make bigger, fully completed pieces, you had your practice in. And that's why I like to keep a fully rendered sketchbook. It's not just for little thumbnail sketches. I definitely recommend keeping a sketchbook or an art book, if you want to call it that, with more completed pieces in it. I feel like if you are a painter, doing different sketches, learning how to draw proportions really well is of course going to be beneficial to you, but trying to make small finished portraits or landscapes or whatever you like to paint in a art book, a book that can handle these mediums like a watercolor sketchbook, I think is only beneficial. You'll see a few times in this painting where I try something out and really don't like the way it turns out. So here I tried making one of her eyes like a really icy blue color, and I end up covering that over, and later in the video you'll see that I do something weird with her hair and I cover that as well. Throughout the process I add in the shadows a few times because they kind of get lost. And then I really love with darker skin tone, you have a lot more room to play with color, just because when someone has a pale flesh tone, there's just a little bit less color to play in with it. When someone has a darker skin tone in a painting, you can really see the blues, the purples, the reds, sometimes the yellow, you can see whatever color is around them. Their skin soaks it up so much better, and in paintings, I think it looks so beautiful. If you're practicing your skill as a painter, especially with portraits, I really would recommend doing people of all different skin tones and also just people that look very different from each other. Try to paint older subjects or really young subjects, or paint people with different features, someone that has, a unique maybe tooth gap or a unibrow, whatever it is. Don't limit yourself to your subject. Don't just do what's comfortable to you. Is going to help your skill to grow much quicker. I actually struggled a good amount with this portrait for some reason, but I am okay with the final result. But I wish it was a little bit different. It was prettier in my head. So a little bit about me is I'm coming from TikTok. I have been posting on TikTok for about 7 months now, every day. I post just daily art videos, art content. And when I found out that TikTok has a threat of being deleted or banned, it really pushed me to start off reaching this goal of starting a YouTube channel. That's something that I've wanted to do for a while, but I was a little bit intimidated by. I didn't know too much about longer form content and finding music that's royalty free. And even doing voiceovers was very intimidating to me when I first started. I'm glad that it gave me the push that I needed to start. Then I rub off the masking fluid, and it's a little bit tedious. When it's big globs of it, it can be very satisfying, but when it's little tiny dots like this, it can be a little bit annoying. And here is the part where I start to mess it up a little bit. I wanted to give her these silver braids because I thought it would look cool, and it ended up making the whole portrait look like extremely futuristic-y, and that's not what I was going for. So I end up covering it over with paint again. I use these silver alcohol markers. I have them linked in my TikTok shop. They're from a brand on TikTok shop called Grabby. And I use these for final touches in my work. I mainly use the white, black, and the metallic shades just for little, shines in the eyes. And you'll see that I use them a little bit in this portrait, so I figured I'd mention them. So since gouache is activated by water, I always like to seal it in my sketchbooks because in case the sketchbook ever gets wet or I use water on the next page, I don't want the portrait that I just painted to get ruined. So I use this wax medium. It's called Dorland's wax medium, and I just use a sponge and do a thin layer on top, and it dries everything down really nice. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I hope to see you again. If you want to follow me, I have Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. My Instagram is k.brielle2, my TikTok is k.brielle8, and I sell custom paintings and original artwork and prints on my website, k.brielle.com. I'm going to link everything in the little description box, and I hope that you really like this video. I hope you come back, and I will see you in the next one. Thank you so much for watching.